restorative, restful, inspiring, renewing Shabbat. And I am here sort of in the darkness, although it's not too bad. I did the fifth night of Hanukkah here in the sanctuary as a part of our each night of Hanukkah having an online presence, and I started with the lights on, but then when I went to light the Hanukkah candles, I turned them off, and I think it looked kind of nice. I hope it's not too dark for folks, but of course I'm not in total darkness. The light over my shoulder is a Havdalah candle that I lit. It is nighttime, and Shabbat has ended, and so we do this ritual to mark the ending of Shabbat. You might not be able to make out the Havdalah candle, but the big ball of flame, that's what that is. And so we'll end Shabbat with Havdalah, and then of course it's the seventh night of Hanukkah. It's interesting tonight because of course we can't light the seventh candle until it's the next day, in a Jewish sense. So that's one reason to combine these two rituals, Havdalah and the lighting of the candles. But also it's interesting because, traditionally in a Jewish sense, Havdalah separates the holiness of Shabbat, the sacred time of Shabbat with the regular time of whatever, school, work. Of course we have Sunday, which is a weekend day, but in general the idea is you separate holiness from ordinary times, and but with this Havdalah, once we end Shabbat, it's still Hanukkah, and we still have an eighth day and an eighth candle when our menorah, our Hanukkah, is full blaze, bringing as much light as we can muster into the world. So we kind of are still in holy mode in a Jewish sense, even after we end Shabbat, which kind of is nice. So I'm going to make the Havdalah blessings, and when I extinguish the candle, Shabbat will be over, and then we'll light the seventh the seven Hanukkah candles. Interesting, right? That of course 7 is the Sabbath, the seventh day. Normally as holy as you can get is the 7, but on Hanukkah, 7 plus 1, we get an extra, and so that's it's interesting when Hanukkah falls in such a way that you have Shabbat and then one extra day, the 8th day of Hanukkah. Even more holy, even more full of hope and faith and light. So I have, besides the candle, I've got a spice bag, a lot of cinnamon in here, and the Kiddush cup, which we'll put the flame out in just a bit. I'm going to sing the blessings for the wine, for the fire, for the spices, and for the separation, which again on this special seventh candle night is not as much of a separation as usual. But I'm going to sing through the blessings. If you have at home the sacred objects that make Havdalah, maybe you have some fire and something good to breathe in, something good to smell, some wine or juice. For the fruit of the vine, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Peri Hagafen. Lai 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 ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. For the spices, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Minei V'Samim. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. And for the fire, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Me'orei Ha'esh. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ruach Haolam Hamavdil Ben Kodesh Lechol. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimhera Beyamenu, Yavo Aleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi. May this Shabbat have been so filled with goodness and truth and inspiration that it brought the whole world closer to healing and to repair. So I'm going to take a sip, and I'm going to take the flame here. Of course, we're in the Festival of Lights, and so fire is, has been part of our evening rituals for, since last Sunday. One of the things I learned at a retreat, I was at a retreat years ago with a really interesting, wonderful rabbi named Gershon Winkler, who has made a lot of alliances with Native peoples, Native Americans, and kind of looks at the Aboriginal, indigenous, sort of earth-based aspects of Judaism, and is able to share with Native American folks, and Native American folks share with Rabbi Gershon, and I was lucky enough to be at a retreat called Lighting the Fire Stories Within, coming together of Jewish and Native American earth-based wisdom keepers. And I remember at Havdalah, Rabbi Gershon, before he put the flame out, he took that fire and he kind of made sure everyone kind of felt the flame, felt the heat, felt the inspiration of the fire, and just a kind of way of spreading that light around. It was very powerful to me, and I do that sometimes when we make Havdalah for Havdalah Bar Bat Mitzvahs, and I think the kids, I'm not sure if they think I'm doing a magic trick, or if I hope, I try to tell them not to try it at home, but really doesn't. Just kind of put your hand there and wave the flame around. And so I'm going to take this, and we'll end Shabbat, but of course it'll still be Hanukkah, and we'll light the seventh candle in just a moment. Shavua Tov, 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 Shavua tov. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua tov. I hope it's a good week for everybody. I hope it's a good week for the planet and all her inhabitants. Before I light the seven candles for the seventh night of Hanukkah, this Saturday night turning into Sunday, I'm going to read something actually written by Rabbi Arthur Waskow, very well-known rabbi, a Jewish renewal rabbi. He's been to CRC a number of times, including right before the pandemic, the fall before COVID. He was our scholar in residence, and it was just, came here and spoke at a rally, trying to get people involved in climate change and healing the planet, and interfaith, and people from. And so he became a guest speaker downtown, but also he did a lot of things here at CRC. I know many people know about Rabbi Waskow, but he wrote kind of a kavanah for Hanukkah candle lighting that I thought was really, really well done. And oftentimes when I light candles with my own family, I've used this passage before I lit the candle. So I'm going to read it to all of you who are watching for the seventh night. When the moon turns dark and the sun turns dark, we light a growing blaze of candles, Chanukah. When the world turns dark because a great government is threatening our freedom, our autonomy, our community, or a great corporation is threatening our jobs or poisoning our earth and air and water, or a great war is threatening our lives and shattering our hopes, we light a growing blaze of candles, Chanukah. When our lives turn dark because we have lost someone beloved, or lost a loving relationship, or lost our sense of purpose in the world, when we have no hope of changing, we light a growing blaze of candles, Hanukkah. When our sense of hope darkens, when our sense of change darkens, we think ourselves helpless. But then, as we light the candles, we remember the Maccabees and the rabbis who faced powers much greater than their own. So on each of the 8 nights, as we light the candles, we say aloud our intention, our kavanah, the commitment we are making to ourselves and to each other to create light in the midst of darkness, hope in the midst of depression and despair. And so that is Hanukkah, creating light in the midst of darkness and hope in the midst of depression and despair. And so I'm going to walk over to our holy ground, Chanukiah, first belonging to Temple Israel when it was on Kings Highway and Washington, and then brought over to St. John's United Methodist Church right across the street. Rabbi Isserman told the minister at St. John's to keep the light on in the neighborhood. And then about 10 years ago, when St. John's had to close, Reverend Wally walked this great, beautiful American with the American Eagle Hanukkah menorah over to CRC and said to us, "Now it's your turn to keep the light on in the neighborhood." And so we have tried, and I know you have tried in your neighborhoods. Shine that light, let it shine through the windows, let the world know who you are, and that we want to add our light to all of the goodness, all of the light in creation. So here I go. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu ve'imotenu bayamim hahem ba'azman hazeh. Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. We'll have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning bright. One for each night, and they shed a sweet light and remind us of days long ago. One for each night, and they shed a sweet light and remind us of days long ago. Happy 7th night of Hanukkah, Shavua Tov. I hope it's a wonderful 8th night with your whole Hanukkah filled with light, and you are filled with light. And I love you, and I'm glad